Well, good evening to everyone. Good to see you here. As you know, we've been studying the book of Proverbs on Wednesday nights, and I'm really enjoying this study. I hope that you are as well. I'm trying each week to read through the book of Proverbs. I know it takes a little bit of time, but it's just amazing how those things start sticking in your head the more you read them. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful book. We're learning, at least I hope that we are, that God's way is always the best way. And that when we do it His way, it does make life a whole lot easier. Now, it doesn't mean that life's going to be easy, but when we start making choices, the kind that God wants us to make, then we get better consequences. And we don't have to deal with some of the problems that we create for ourselves. And so we're learning to deal with some of the things that hopefully we face in life and deal with them in a better way. And last week as we were closing, we were talking a little bit about anger. And I wanted to show just a couple of more verses about this subject of anger and dealing with it and certainly dealing with it the way that God wants us to. Notice this one, Proverbs 27 and verses 3 and 4. A stone is heavy and the sand weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. Wrath is cruel and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy? Think about that idea of carrying around a weight. Who would like to do that all day? Just to carry something around. I know if you're in the military, you've had to do that. You put that pack on and you go on your marches and everything else, and that thing becomes a burden real quick. I know they're getting you in shape and all that kind of thing, and you go into battle, you'll have to carry gear, and so it's needed, but it would be made a whole lot easier on those marches if you didn't have to wear that. I've got a weighted vest. It's 20 pounds. Got these sand pockets, you put in there, and if you go on a walk or something, then it makes it a little harder. It's got a little badge right here on it, a little gold thing. I look like I'm a deputy or something almost, But anyway, it makes it tougher. But when you take that off, oh man, that burden's not there. That's what he's saying about anger. It is such a burden to us as we go through life. You go through life mad at the world, it's going to be a rough life. And there are a lot of people that are that way. I remember a preacher one time talking to me about some boys that were out in the country, and there was a country store, and there was an old man that was always there in this rocking chair, took a nap there every day. Well, when he was napping one day, they snuck up and put Limburger cheese under his nose, in his mustache. And he woke up and he looked around, something is stinking, And he thought maybe it's the dog there or something. So he got away from it and went over, in another aisle. He saw some people, maybe it's them, And he went and he finally went outside and he still smelled it. And he said, "The whole world stinks." Well, that's kind of the way someone who's angry at the world is. The whole world's awful. And boy, that's a hard attitude to carry through life. It makes things so tough. And so there are things that are going to bring out anger in us. How are we going to react? And how are we going to control it? Not going to let it control us. Proverbs 29 verse 20. Seest thou a man that is hasty in his words? There is more hope of a fool than of him. And again, speaking out in anger, have you ever said anything that you wish you could have got back? You don't have to tell me. I know you have. Everybody has. And we've used the excuse, "I'm sorry, I was mad." Well, does that take it away? It just doesn't. It just doesn't. And so sometimes the best thing you can do is just kind of walk away. Remain silent. Let yourself calm down. You count to 10. If that doesn't work, count to 20. I don't care how high you have to count. But those words in anger, you can't get them back. And so be careful. And then this, and someone shared this with me at the end of class. I had it on here, but we didn't get to it. The New Testament talks about this idea as well. Be angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath, neither give place to the devil. The devil is always looking for a place. He just needs a crack. What's that old saying? If you give the devil an inch, he becomes your ruler. He becomes your ruler. And so you don't want to don't give him any place in your heart. Don't hold on to it. You ever have this happen to you? You're angry and you just hold on to it, and then after a while you forget why you were angry. You just know you are. People ask me all the time, what was that feud about between the Hatfields and McCoys? I don't know what it was about. I mean, I watch the shows like you do. Some people, it was over a pig. They fought over a pig. I think it had something to do with it. They had free-range pigs back then. And they marked them on their ears. And if you got a hold of some ones that you could change that mark, it became yours. It was stealing it, but it's awful hard to prove if no one caught you doing it. And so, that would happen sometimes. Someone says, well, it was a love story. One of those Hatfields fell in love with a McCoy, and I don't know. I have no idea what it was all about. Well, all I'm saying is, I don't know, and I'm a Hatfield. Now, I can tell you this, it was the McCoy's fault. I know that. Isn't that right? No? Okay. But you see, sometimes that happens. You get angry, and you just know you're angry at someone, but you forget what it was all about. And then here's a relationship. And sometimes it even happens between brother and sister in Christ. And that's sad. And so when it comes to anger, understand there are times that we're going to be angry. Learn to control your anger, your speech, what you do, and let's learn to be angry about things that are worth being angry about, not selfish reasons. That's childish. Remember when we used to have a television that you had to turn the knob? Well, ours was broken, and my sister would turn it to a channel she wanted and then take the knob out. That's reason to get angry, That's pretty, I want what I want. We can be pretty childish at times. And we show it in what makes us angry. Let's mature. And again, there are things that ought to make us angry. There were things that made Jesus angry, but he did not sin. He did not sin. All right, so let's move on and let's look at some of our memory verses. Proverbs 4 and verse 7. What's it say? Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Okay? Very good. Proverbs 18:24. A man that hath friends must show himself friendly. And there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. Okay, very good. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not on thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. All right? Proverbs 14 and verse 13. Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach unto any people. All right? And Proverbs 13 and verse 15. Good understanding giveth favor, but what? The way of the transgressor is hard. And this week, Proverbs 17:22. A merry heart doth what? Good like a medicine, but a broken spirit does what? Drieth the bones. Drieth the bones. All right, for this week, our memory verse is Proverbs 14:27. The fear of the Lord is a fountain of life, to depart from the snares of death. If you fear God, you know that His judgment is there. You don't want that. It'll keep you from those snares because you know where they lead. All right? We're going to talk about something this evening that the book of Proverbs deals with. And I hope I can do it in a way that I'm not trying to offend anyone or anything like that. But it's something that we need to talk about. It's a serious matter in our world, a huge problem. And there are many warnings given in Proverbs about this. And what I want to talk about are these ideas of warnings that are given against fornication. Throughout the book of Proverbs, the author, speaking to his son or unto sons, is going to warn him about the wicked woman, the harlot, and how you need to keep yourself pure. You need to stay away from her door, because her door is the door to hell. That's what he's going to tell him. Her door is the door to hell. And you might think, well, here we are, people that go to church, surely we don't need to really talk about this. Well, folks, I've been at this preaching thing long enough to know that if something's a problem in the world, it's going to be a problem in the church too. Because we face the same kind of temptations. And so we need to be on guard. And we need to warn one another. I want to share a couple of thoughts with you here. I don't know why that did that. But, there you go. Okay. But here are some statistics that I looked up today. All right. And I tried to put the source down when I had it there. But this is a quote. And this surprised me. The experts at Divorce Magazine, I did not know there was a Divorce Magazine. That surprised me. But the experts at Divorce Magazine note that about 45 to 50% of married women and 50 to 60% of married men cheat on their spouses. According to the APA, infidelity in the United States accounted for 20 to 40% of divorces. That sounds like a big problem to me. All right? Look at this. Beginning in 2004, adults 55 and older reported cheating at rates 6% higher compared to younger individuals. And most people who cheat have been married for 20 to 30 years and are between the age of 50 and 60. Does that surprise you? That did me. That did me. When I put this together, I thought, well, it's going to be people in their 20s to 30s, and then 30s to 40s, and it just, it'll go down as it goes up. This says it doesn't. It says this group, that's my group. I'm going to be 55 next week. 16 and a half. But anyway, all right. 34, 35 sleep. So anyway, but that's shocking to me. Look at this. The average number of sexual partners for men and women in the United States is 7.2, reports a recent Superdrug survey. Now, this was just a survey, and I looked, and the sample size was 2,000 people that they surveyed. That's not a large number, all right? So how accurate this is as far as the whole population of the United States, I don't know. That's not a very big sample, 2,000 people. But to me, that number is still shocking. Still shocking. I thought this was interesting. All told, nearly 2.3 million cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis were diagnosed in the U.S. in 2017. That's 200,000 more cases than were diagnosed in 2016, a year that also had a record high number of cases according to the CDC. That's a problem. And if I read on, this disease, gonorrhea, we have one antibiotic that is still effective against it. And doctors and researchers are saying it's just a matter of time until this bacteria becomes immune to that. All right? They said that's why we need to get more research on this matter. Come up with drugs. I understand we want to get drugs that prevent that, but folks, I know how to stop it. I know how to stop it. We follow what God tells us. All right? Look at this. You don't hear much about this anymore, but approximately 1.1 million people in the U.S. are living with HIV today. An estimated 38,700 Americans became newly infected with HIV in 2016. And the largest group is homosexual males. There were approximately 36.9 million people worldwide living with HIV/AIDS in 2017. And over 1 million of them are infants. Innocents. And folks, we have the ability to stop all of that if we would just practice living the way God wants us to in that marriage plan. One man and one woman for a lifetime. Now, I know there's other ways that people get some of these diseases. I understand that there are some who get it innocently. I mentioned those infants, and there can be blood that has been tainted and so forth. I understand that, but primarily it is through sexual relationships and use of illegal drugs is how these are spread, the HIV anyway. And so we could stop almost all of it if we would follow God's plan. But you never hear anyone say anything like that because they don't want to tell people, stop living that way. And with all the information that is out there about practicing safely and all this kind of thing, and the numbers are going up. It's not helping. The only thing that's going to help is if we get back to living God's way. All right? And that's why when you look at what the writer of Proverbs tells us, it is such great wisdom. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind. Who wrote this? Who wrote most of the book of Proverbs? Solomon. What was Solomon's big problem? All right. Women. Now, he was married to 1,700 wives, 300 concubines. But this writer is going to talk about how his dad taught him these things. Who was his daddy? David. What do you remember about David concerning this matter? Oh, David and Bathsheba. In fact, that's Solomon's mother. All right? I just bring that to our attention because, folks, it's one thing to know better. It's another to do better. And it's easy to say, hey, here's what you ought to do. No, here's what I need to do. And here's what I am going to do. I'm going to heed the warning that is given. All right? Now notice, let's look at these passages and the warnings that are given. First of all, in Proverbs chapter 2, and verses 16 to 19. And he's been talking about wisdom. I'm giving you this wisdom. You seek wisdom. You seek understanding. And here's why. It will deliver you from these situations. It'll keep you from these situations. A lot of times, the best way to stay away from these kinds of things is just not put yourself in those kind of situations at all. All right? To deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flattereth with her words, which forsaketh the guide of her youth, and forgetteth the covenant of her God. For her house inclineth unto death, and her paths unto the dead. None that go unto her return again, neither take they hold of the paths of life. He's warning him, you go down this path, it leads to death. And many are the people that have taken this road and they don't come back. They don't come back. Look at this in Proverbs 5. And by the way, I will tell you that the way that these are written, it's a father talking to his son. The same thing could be said in reverse if a mother was talking to her daughter, warning her about men. All right? And so we're not trying to put it all on the women. This is something that takes two. And so it's equal responsibility here. Proverbs 5 verse 1 beginning. My son, attend unto my wisdom, and bow down thine ear to my understanding, that thou mayest regard discretion, and that thy lips may keep knowledge. For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. That sounds pretty enticing, doesn't it? That's what he tells him. That's the way that it is. But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell. Lest thou shouldest ponder the path of life, her ways are movable, that thou canst not know them. She doesn't want you to know where this road leads. She doesn't want you to see the end, and that's the devil's tactic. He doesn't want people to see all the ruin that adultery brings to our society. Hear me now, therefore, O ye children, and depart not from the words of my mouth. Remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house, lest thou give thine honor unto others, and thy years unto the cruel, lest strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of a stranger, and thou mourn at the last, when thy flesh and thy body are consumed, and say, how have I hated instruction, and my heart despised reproof. I don't know exactly if this is exactly what he was talking about here in verse 10, Proverbs 5 and verse 10. Lest strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of a stranger. But how many people, how many men are working today to pay for a house they're not living in anymore because they cheated on their spouse? I was listening last week on the radio, and Toby Keith sang a song. He was going by his old house. Whose truck is that in my driveway? You know, and there's that man who's running my life. I think that's the name of the song. Who's that man that's running my life? Because he was paying, for all. And that's what it leads to. Can I tell this, Tammy? I'm my father-in-law's favorite son-in-law. And I can say that because I'm the only one he's got left. He's got 4 daughters, and all of them have been married, and they don't have husbands anymore. One of them's been married 5 times. I forgot the point I was going to make. Oh, I know what it was. The one that's been divorced 5 times has thought every time, I'm going to get rich doing this. I'm going to make money because he's going to take care of me. He's going to have to pay for me, and it hadn't worked that way. I don't know how court systems work, and I don't know how lawyers divide things up and that kind of thing, but I've learned, and you probably have too, that divorce, it's expensive. It's expensive. And it doesn't bring riches. I think years ago, Travis Tritt, country music singer, he had gone through a bad divorce, I think, where he lost a lot of money. And I heard him on an interview say something like this: I'm just going to find a woman that I don't like and buy her $1 million house. Because that's what ends up happening anyway. Well, it cost him. It cost him. Everybody knows who Tiger Woods is, right? What happened to him about 10 years ago? I don't know how many millions he lost. Because he had to give part of his fortune unto his ex-wife. And that just it happens over and over. But he's warning here about, and those are just some of the physical dangers, let alone the spiritual ones. Look at this in Proverbs 6, verse 24. Again, hold to wisdom. Why? To keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. There is a big difference, folks, between love and lust. And a lot of people confuse the two. And they will say, we couldn't help it. We just love one another. Well, love wants what is best. Lust wants to gratify itself. And that's a huge difference. I saw this today, and I don't know how true it is. I can only tell you what I read. Of men who have an affair, and those girls, those young, their mistresses, may have this idea, he's going to leave his wife and marry me. 3% of them do. 3%. And of those 3% that end up marrying the person they had the affair with, the divorce rate is 75%. Anyway, all right. So there's a big difference between lust and love. Verse 26, by means of a whorish woman, a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. Look at this. Can a man take fire into his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Can one go upon hot coals and his feet not be burned? Who is that motivational fella, Tony Robbins? I guess at his things, he has had people walk on hot coals all the time. All right. Well, at one of them, they'd take a bunch of them to the emergency room because they burnt their feet. My mama taught me a long time ago, don't touch things that are hot. They'll burn you. But here's the idea, and here's what everybody thinks. I won't get caught. It'll be a one-time thing, and I won't get caught. And the writer of Proverbs is saying, you can't take fire in your bosom and not get burnt. You can't walk on hot coals and not burn your feet. You're only fooling yourself if you think you won't get caught. All right? God always knows, of course. But things have a way. And in our world today, with so many cameras and pictures and everything, how do people expect to not get caught? That's silly. But we deceive ourselves that way. And as long as people think no one will know, it's shocking what people will do when they think no one will find out. But the writer's telling us that just won't happen. So he goeth in to his neighbor's wife. Whoso toucheth her shall not be innocent. Men, do not despise a thief if he steal to satisfy his soul when he is hungry. But if he be found, he shall restore sevenfold. He shall give all the substance of his house. But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doth it destroyeth his own soul. A wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. I have a friend who committed adultery as a young man. And about 10 years afterwards, he was talking to me. He reconciled with his wife. They had a couple kids and things were going well. He'd been faithful to the church. He said, "Tim, when are people going to forget about that?" And I had to tell him, I don't know if they ever will. I don't know if they ever will. Now, you've been forgiven. He made things right. But he's telling us here that his reproach shall not be wiped away. There's some things you do, good or bad, they'll have a way of staying with you. You know, you do some great thing, you might have to talk about that the rest of your life. Remember that day you hit 4 home runs? Tell us about that. Oh man, I've told that story 1,000 times. Of course, 1,001 won't hurt, 4 home runs, that's pretty good. But, when it's something off, how many times do you think Bill Buckner had to talk about that ball going through his legs in the World Series? Poor guy. Just awful. And that's just a ball game. And so, verse 34, for jealousy is the rage of a man. Therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will not regard any ransom, neither will he rest content, though thou givest many gifts. He just talked about this here, and he said, when a thief steals because he's hungry, people are willing to forgive that. You pay it back. You pay back more than what you took. There's restitution there. Okay. You steal a man's wife. How do you pay that back? How do you pay that back? You can't say sorry enough. You can't. And jealousy, talks about it here, that day of vengeance. How many lives have been taken because of this? That's what he's warning about. Look in Proverbs 7. My son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Keep my commandments and live, and my law is the apple of thine eye. Bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the tables of thine heart. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman, that they may keep thee from the strange woman, from the stranger which flattereth with her words. For at the window of my house I looked through the casement, and beheld among the simple ones, I discerned among the youths a young man void of understanding, passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house. In the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night, and behold, there met him a woman with the attire of an harlot and subtle of heart. She is loud and stubborn. Her feet abide not in her house. Now she is without, now in the streets, and lieth in wait at every corner. So she caught him and kissed him, and with an impotent face said unto him, I have peace offerings with me. This day I have paid my vows. Therefore came I forth to meet thee, diligently to seek thy face, and I have found thee. Doesn't that sound, oh man, men love that. I was looking for you, just for you. That you were the one I was looking, you're the one. You just happen to be the one that passed by. All right, but that's what she's telling him. And he's eating it up. Therefore came I forth to meet thee diligently, to seek thy face, and I have found thee. I have decked my bed with coverings of tapestry, with carved works, with fine linen of Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love until the morning. Let us solace ourselves with loves. For the good man is not at home. He is gone a long journey. He hath taken a bag of money with him and will come home at the day appointed. There's no way we're going to get caught. He is gone. He ain't going to be back for a long time. With her much fair speech, she caused him to yield. With the flattering of her lips, she forced him. He goeth after her straightway as an ox goeth to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks, till a dart strike through his liver, as a bird hasteneth to the snare, and knoweth not that it is for his life. Hearken unto me now, therefore, O ye children, and attend to the words of my mouth. Let not thine heart decline to her ways. Go not astray in her paths. For she hath cast down many wounded. Yea, many strong men have been slain by her. Her house is the way to hell, going down to the chambers of death. Folks, that's a pretty vivid picture. Mentions a strong man. You mention a strong man of the Bible. Who comes to mind? Samson, right? What was his downfall? Wasn't just Delilah, folks. It was women. It was women. He wanted to marry a woman that wasn't a Jew. Told his parents, get her for me. Well, he ended up losing her. And then there's another woman that he is with, and he's caught and has to carry the gates of the city out of the town. And then Delilah comes along, and folks, that wasn't a love story. She loved that money. And so here are these warnings that are given. Folks, our time is up. I appreciate so much us studying this together. Let's just heed the warning. Do it God's way. One man, one woman together for a lifetime. And life will get a whole lot easier for us. All right. Appreciate it.